The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday and welcome into the Pod at the Palace. It's been a little bit of a rainy weekend again so far here in Fayetteville. Although as I'm recording here Saturday afternoon, the sun appears to be peeking out just a little bit. So hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully it's been a better weather weekend wherever you guys are so far. The countdown continues unless something happens later in the day on Saturday, at which point we'll adjust, we'll adapt, survive and adapt. The countdown continues, 3 days until the NBA draft withdrawal deadline for the fellas. You guys know the drill, just a waiting game, see what happens. Okay. But I'll tell you what, there's no countdown for, because it's here. Believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, the Razorbacks are moving onto campus as we speak because summer classes and summer workouts start Tuesday. It's here. It's unbelievable. I feel like I just left San Francisco in that Sweet 16 game, and here we are. Like graduation was like yesterday or whatever, but here we are. Team's moving in, man. This thing's getting rolling. We're flipping the page. So start following those Instagram accounts to see the guys posting, from the gym or whatever in Fayetteville. Maybe the men's basketball Twitter account will put out a few things to get us fired up. I'd appreciate that a little bit. Maybe Carter Knox will just post a random picture of his shoes in the practice facility and pin his location. And that's how he goes about telling us he's come back. Sign me up for that. But no, this is it really does blow me away that we're here already. This will be, especially, and you think about last year too, everything was just so delayed with the late start for Cal and everything that he had to do to get this thing rolling. They got off to a later start than normal with this particular thing. But traditionally it's Memorial Day weekend where teams move in, summer classes start, workouts begin, and there you are. So this is going to be the start of a period here where you basically get 8 weeks worth of summer practice time over a 10-week period. Like you can get 8 weeks in over a 10-week period. You got to take a little bit of time off, but it's limited to 8 hours per week that you get to have. 4 of them can be on-court instruction, skills, drills, all that kind of stuff, right, with the coaching staff. The other 4 are strength and conditioning stuff that they'll do with, with Dave Rich, whatever. So it's here, man. The new big men are going to get to work with Kenny Payne. That's cool. Your guards can get introduced to the Noah machine, which we really hope is, recalibrated or or whatever. The weight room season for the freshmen begins. Going to be big for Leak, Darius, those guys to get in and put on some muscle before their freshman year. You know how physical that SEC is, man. And they'll do a lot of open runs too. Cal's talked about that. Honestly, he likes them doing a lot of individual, skill development and everything like that. At this particular time period, it's good that they're going to be a little bit ahead of the game by way of, having some retention and, kind of understanding what the system is and the schemes. It's like they've got a little bit of a head start, a lot of it compared to where they were last year. So a lot of individual skill development. Cal encourages them to get open runs in. Just get up and down, play some pickup. And they'll do a lot of that with, like former players and, some of Cal's guys, pros, whoever, who come in and come on campus, which is always cool to hear about that. So it's crazy, here we are. And the one I'm not 100% sure about, excuse me, exactly when he'll get in is Kareem, because he's got to come from overseas and everything like that. And he's been playing pro and contractual stuff. So it might be a little bit for him. He might be here already for all I know, honestly. But all those other guys, should be here within the course of the next few days. That's, Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, because they're not participating in the, USA minicamp thing. Sealy, although he, can just drive 10 minutes to campus. Malik Ewan, I think a lot of people saw the clip that was going around of him doing a little open run, little pickup, hitting threes and stuff. And we're like, Nick Pringle will be here. He just left from his visit. He was eating dinner at Cheers like 3 days ago. It feels like it's wild to me how quickly all this has gone. But this is exciting. It really is. It means we're getting closer to this roster being finalized, and we can really, really dive into just all the reasons why we should be pumped up about this basketball team. So, hey, with move-in and, in summer workouts here, I do wonder if we're going to get an announcement about the back end roster additions. Like, hey, will they add another guy out of the portal if a dude doesn't come back, whatever, a piece that can help you? I don't know. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those last few roster spots like they did last year with Aiden Kelly and, Jaden and Mello and Cash and all those guys. And it's a little bit hard to say, because again, last year, those guys actually didn't get announced. I went and looked earlier until the middle of July. It was like July 11th when all those guys were announced. So they were well into the summer and everything. But last year was crazy, right? I mean, Cal didn't even have his 9-man rotation in place until June. I think it was like June 4th or June 5th that TB announced that he was returning. And I know it was I think it was May 26th or May 27th that DJ Wagner announced that he was coming. So it took him a while. Cal had the full schedule to put together, all that stuff. So everything was just kind of pushed back from where it would normally be. And they didn't even really have time to identify or go after the bench guys. Cal calls them walk-ons. But as he, kind of explained to everybody, they're full scholarship players. It's about, the NIL and everything like that. But the end of the bench guys. This year's a different story, though. I mean, hell, they haven't been too busy during portal season. I think we can all agree with that. Like you made your big man additions early. We're waiting on some final retention stuff. Maybe one more beyond that if Cal feels like he wants to do that. So theoretically, they could be a lot further along this time around with that type of stuff. Like ideally, I think you would like to have as much of your team as possible in place for these summer workouts, for every bit of them. Even the back end guys, like, the more they get acclimated with the culture and the system and just getting settled in, like the quicker they can serve whatever their purpose is, which is, developing and getting better, but also helping the team, giving you bodies, options to work with and like all those things. So, now, of course, I don't think those are going to be super flashy additions here by any means. Last year it was literally, one of Cal's old walk-ons from Kentucky and, two guys who didn't even have recruiting profiles in any of the major recruiting services, a D2 transfer, and then Cash, who was a 3-star top 150 type of prospect there, actually. So I thought today it'd be kind of fun just to throw out a handful of just interesting names. That way we could pat ourselves on the back if any of it came to fruition. And I've spoken on this before, I feel like there's a pathway to making your team better through these kind of the end of the bench additions. And that doesn't mean Arkansas gets 15 guys and they think they're going to play all 15 guys. No, it's not that at all. But the more talent you have there, the more guys are pushed in practice, the better. And then in some cases, I think you could go out and get some guys who might not be ready yet, but you could develop and keep them around, and then they could be if you go about it the right way. So let's do that. The first name is one that we've mentioned in the past, but I want to bring it up again. When I think of the Melo Sanchez mold of someone who's, played college ball at a smaller school at a lower level, what about EJ Neal from Sacramento State? I mean, Julian Neal, the new defensive back from Fresno State's brother, his dad's already on the hype train with Cal. Not that Cal cares about any of that, but if you want a low effort recruitment for the back end of the roster, well, there you go. Maybe the kid wants to go somewhere he can play, his last year, have a big role. Maybe he just wants the NCAA tournament and the big college SEC type of experience. But, hell, he's 6'5", average 8 points per game, hit 55 threes at a low major Division I last year. Was defensive player of the year at his JUCO before that. The bare minimum to me here, it just seems like a guy who could make you better in practice, could push you a little bit. Like an all-league JUCO defender, an older guy coming in and defending these freshmen every day in practice. I think that's a good thing. I do. I think it's a good thing for you. If you need a scout team guy who, mimics whoever the sharpshooter is for an SEC team. Well, you got one here that's 6'5" and, hit 55 threes last season in college. And if you watch him play, he's a guy that can kind of get that shot off pretty quick and off the dribble. You need guys like that who can, kind of portray what you're going to see in a game. It's huge for preparation. It really is. So I think it would make some sense there. Terrion Burgess is still out there in the backyard. Very odd deal. His stock has dropped from the 5-star days, and he's another guy that we've talked about quite a bit, but still a prospect, in my opinion, just has no business being graduated from high school here with colleges starting summer workouts, and he hasn't found a home, or at least he hasn't announced it. Maybe he's someone's backup plan and he's holding out a little bit. I think there are a couple solid mid-majors he could go to at this point. I've heard Wichita State connected to him a lot, heard Little Rock connected to him a lot. Have heard Memphis is at least somewhat in the conversation. We remember the smoke with Arkansas a little while back. I'm just surprised that he's not committed yet. So I'm still advocating for this move for the Razorbacks. And you know what it would remind me of? And I wanted to make this comp and just see what you guys think about it, because I thought it was fascinating. There's a lot of parallels here. But you know what a Terrion Burgess to Arkansas commitment here would really, really parallel? When Cal went out and got Jordan Burks late in that 2023 class at Kentucky. It's kind of crazy. I was putting the comparisons together earlier today. Burks was a 3-star. He was ranked number 177 by 24/7 Sports. Burgess is a 3-star, and he's ranked number 166 by 24/7 Sports. They've got Burks listed at 6'9", 190 pounds. Burgess at 6'8", 200 pounds. Burks was actually committed to Ole Miss until Kermit Davis got fired. And then he decommitted there. Burgess was believed to be headed to Ole Miss for the longest. And it's still available as we get closer to June here. It's kind of interesting, man. It really is. And he committed, Burks did, to Kentucky in June. So a little bit later there as well. It's like very similar players, very similar arcs, very similar profiles. And it worked out for Cal that first year. And I had heard some things about the locker room and everything. I'm not talking about that, but just in terms of making a late addition and, wound up helping you a little bit. Just connecting the dots. Because for what it's worth, Burks actually wound up playing in 20 games as a true freshman for Kentucky, but he averaged 7 minutes per game. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. He knew the drill when he got there and had an opportunity and was able to seize it for a little bit of a role. And had he not done that, there's no way in hell he would have been able to get picked up by Georgetown and play for them as much as he did this past year. So there's a lot to it. But man, 7 minutes per game. But he filled in early when they had a bunch of big men who were injured. And he was good for, a few minutes here and there in SEC play, had a big game against Vanderbilt. I would love to see Arkansas add a guy like that. And I actually think there's a world where Burgess, could push Rattel potentially for whatever the hell his role is going to be. So, I'm advocating for it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know what's going on there. It's like I said, it's kind of a strange deal. I'm surprised that he hasn't found a home or announced a home here just yet. But, there are 2 guys off the top. Got, a couple other notable high school prospects who are still uncommitted at this stage. What about Trayvon Maddox? 4-star, number 117 in the rankings, 6'6" wing from Orlando. This is a guy who was he was committed to Stephen F. Austin, and he kind of started taking off. His stock was on the rise there, in his senior season. So he reopened his commitment or his recruitment. He visited Dayton. Nothing's really come of it so far as I know just yet. He hasn't been picked up, but that's a talented player. Alex Austin is another one that caught my attention. Very interesting here. He's out of Kenwood Academy in Chicago. That's a really good program. Used to see them all the time when I was scouting in St. Louis, and they would come down to, events down there. It was, they were always good. They were always talented and freaking athletic. But he's a composite 4-star, had a bunch of high major interest. But, he also has, first of all, he calls himself the Serbian sniper. I don't know if he's Serb. I mean, I guess he is. Otherwise, why would you say it? But I know he's also had a Serbian pro club that was interested in getting him. But it's been quiet with him since the season ended. In fact, I was doing some research, and I guess there's some article written that he had committed to New Mexico State, and then I don't know if it was his dad or his brother or somebody in his family. He's kind of, poured water on that fire and was like, no, this is not true. Like, he's going to be making an announcement soon, but this is cap. So that's another one, Now, how about Nas Hart? We're talking about a guy here who's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan, right in that same range in the rankings as Burgess is. We've talked a lot about just the need to have another, big, tall, or athletic body in there for practice. They didn't have Lawson Blake last year because of the Achilles, so those poor GAs were having to, to go up against, Jonas and Z every day, and those guys were having to take all the reps. So, something like that could make sense. Like, there are 5 names for you right away, and also, I know there's going to be people who immediately do the thing about, well, why wouldn't these guys just go somewhere that they can play right away? Well, why would a top 40 prospect in the country commit to Kentucky knowing he's probably going to have to redshirt? You know what I mean? Like, so thinking that, guys outside the top 100 wouldn't come to Arkansas and essentially do the same thing. That's not crazy to me by any means. And then I hear but Cal said he's not going to recruit guys who he coaches up for a year, who just leave for the portal, go play somewhere else. Well, he just did that with Big Z and with Boogie. So, such is life, at this stage. But if you really want retention every year, having a guy or two like this on the back end that you take a flyer on and see what happens when they develop could be very beneficial for you. Maybe over the course of the year, you decide, hey, you know what? Kind of like where this is headed. This is somebody we want to keep. Maybe this could be something here, a program guy. And if not, then you're just doing for them what you did for Cash Chavis. Is anybody upset that Cash came and, helped you in practice and was a good influence in the locker room and kept the vibes up and kept them high and, didn't profile as somebody who's going to help you, but now he transferred and he got another, D1 scholarship at UT Arlington and is going to have better opportunity? Is anyone upset about that? Is that a bad look for Arkansas? I don't think so at all. So I really don't see the harm in trying to do something like that, especially if these guys come in with the understanding of what their role would be, what the plan is, what it's going to look like, and embrace that. So we'll see what happens. A couple more things that I want to get to, and then we'll get out here for the day. And also, I'm going to save the 4 spot, the power forward conversation with Trevin for tomorrow, because I wound up with a little bit more than I anticipated to have here today, but that's okay. But I was exchanging messages with my buddy Aaron Torres the other day. You guys all know AT. He's in my rotation of pods that I listen to literally every single episode that gets put out. So, you guys at this, everybody's well aware. When we've debated it in here, it's been debated on social media, message boards, Discords, our show, everywhere. Whether or not Arkansas has done enough. Do they have too few pieces, too many pieces? Do they have enough depth? Can they add another mouth that will want to be fed? Are they afraid of the depth chart? Are they too worried about feelings, not worried enough about feelings? You guys know exactly where I stand on all this, but AT gave me a good laugh. He said that, Arkansas fans, maybe we're all just kind of suffering from a little bit of post-traumatic Musselman syndrome, right? It basically just, so different what he did compared to what we're experiencing now. And just because you can fill every roster spot doesn't always mean that you have to or that you should. And that really got me thinking about, just how big of an adjustment it's been when it comes to the portal season experience between Eric Musselman and John Calipari. And since Cal said it, I'm rolling with it, even though I completely understand that this is something that can and will vary from year to year. But that 4-4-2 thing, right? That's the roster model. 4 returners, 4 freshmen, 2 transfers. And so I was thinking, like, what was Musselman's model? So I went back and did a bunch of math, basically. And under Eric Musselman, the Razorbacks averaged 4.25 returners per year. And for what it's worth there, I'm counting Connor Vanover, JD Note, and Bebe, who redshirted Musselman's first year, but they all returned and played second year into this figure. So 4.25 returners, 2.6 freshmen. You know, he had a 6-man class and a 4-man class, but he also had a 0, a 1, and a 2 mixed in there. And then 5.2 transfers. Never fewer than 3 transfers in a class. And we're just begging for 3 nowadays, but had as many as 7 last year. It's crazy. So you've got a 4.42 model for Cal, and then you've got a 2.6, 4.25, 5.2 model for Muss there. So, you know, to kind of add to AT's point there, for starters with Muss, I mean, that equals up to just over 12 spots per year. And it's been a 13 scholarship deal up until the 2 scholarship increase here recently. And that's also including Muss's first year, where he only had 9 scholarship guys. Remember how thin they were that year? Usually they were pretty much all the way full. So there's that. And it also goes to, it goes to show the difference in priorities. Now, the portal is where it's at for Muss. He liked ranking high in freshman classes. He coveted that, the 5 stars. In fact, I'll go to my grave thinking that the reason he took Bay Fall, because I know those guys knew that he wasn't ready. But I think the reason they took him was because they knew he was going to be a 5-star, and it was an opportunity to get yourself up there in the rankings and maybe get another McDonald's All-American. It can help you down the road with future classes. Now he dipped out, so it doesn't help at Arkansas, but whatever. The retention, though, I've got to say for Muss was an interesting one, because you have to consider here, he did have a good amount of draft picks, Muss did, and he also brought in a lot of 1-year transfers who weren't eligible to return. So he didn't really honestly have a bunch of guys who were key contributors dip out on him and hit the portal and go elsewhere. Can you think about who those guys would be? Like Jackson Robinson didn't really play. He left. KK didn't really play, so he left. Those guys became good elsewhere. Vance Jackson never really got the opportunity. He left. So it wasn't anything crazy. Like, I can't remember anybody that they would have really, really wanted to come back who dipped out on them. So, and then on the flip side, Cal has taken a new liking to retention, which I love and agree with completely. I'm so glad that he's doing that. That was one thing we were told. We were told a lot of things by BBN, but they were like, "Hey, good luck with the complete roster turnover every year, and guys who have no business going and staying in the draft, going to the draft and staying in the draft, and whatever." So I do like this a lot from Cal, but he's going to get his freshman. We know that. The portal, whatever's left in the need bucket, we'll address it in there. So it is a polar opposite type of situation, for sure. And I'm not saying that one way is right or the other is wrong. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Eric Musselman's done it his way and had a lot of success at Arkansas. And John Calipari is doing it his way, and he's coming off a Sweet 16 in year 1 at Arkansas. And he's got a top 10 on paper roster right now doing the exact same thing. So, but I do think it's, it's just very different worlds that we've lived in here recently. I mean, the answer for me, I would love to find just like a happy medium. I think the expectations were really based on Cal's multiple admissions that they needed more with the way things went down last year. I mean, the number 11 came out of his mouth, not mine, but, and I wouldn't think that this late season run, when rotations just naturally shorten as you get to the postseason, would change the plans. Like, you would hope to make sure that you have the horses to get through the regular season in better shape moving forward. You got to be able to handle attrition in this league. And it's not just injuries, it's just getting worn down because it's such a physical conference. It's just a grind, man. But, the first part of the argument, like, if you're really wondering, have they done enough? Have they not? Whatever. The first part of the argument to me is whether or not people believe that Isaiah Sealy and Kareem Rattel are rotation locks. And hey, we aren't asleep over here. Like, we've talked about both of those guys a lot at length, and I'm particularly high on Sealy. I think he is a guy who could surprise early. But at the time, both of those guys were brought in. I never really had the indication that they were going to be expected to contribute from day one, that they would need to contribute from day one. Not that they couldn't, but I don't think that was exactly the plan necessarily. But with the roster as constructed, I mean, say you just add Knox back here, that will be the case. Does that mean that it's destined to fail? No, not at all. But is it very risky? Yes, absolutely. And, my main thought is, if you have the money and the resources, why even leave it up to chance here? I feel like Arkansas was short on ball handlers, a little bit last season. That showed when Boogie went down. Hey, Billy turned out to be able to help, and that's good. But I figured that might be something that they address, just a veteran role player in the backcourt. Mid-major guy who can dribble and shoot, nothing crazy. They were short on forwards last year for sure. Thought that would be something that they would absolutely adjust. I was certain that they would have one more big man on that roster compared to what they had last season. I mean, absolutely certain. And maybe they wind up doing that, but so far they haven't done either of those. They've kind of gone and grabbed, two what we hope to be healthy bodies at center. So there you are. So, I have been, and I'll continue to be the guy that yells at the clouds here saying, you can't really justify having just 8 sure things in your rotation after struggling with 9 last year. But I'm certainly not advocating for the Eric Musselman method or the Mark Pope overcorrection where they got hit with injuries. And so he was like, screw it. I'm going to go out and get 20 guys. And this is not going to be a problem for me anymore. Find a middle ground. That's where I'm at. I don't want to get twisted. Give me one more experienced body. That's it. It doesn't have to be a star. Like I'm not over here demanding Thero back or Jameer Watkins or RJ Lewis. I would love to get a guy like that. And I don't think it would be a big deal, but I'm not an unreasonable man here, Just go get an experienced backup in the front court. So you aren't looking crazy when Trevin gets in foul trouble or, when he has to play the 5s because your bigs are in foul trouble. And, then maybe go out and get one of these upside young guys that we were just talking about, potentially. Because at that point you look at it and you got your core of 8 who are going to get the vast majority of the minutes. DJ, Acuff, Malik, Carter, Billy, Trevin, Ewan, and Pringle, right? They're going to get a majority of the minutes, but you have a role guy for that 9th man. And I'm 100% open to is the idea, to the idea of Sealy as like your 10th man. So he's on the 2 deep there with opportunity. And I think that would take pressure off Rattel to, he'd be able to develop and adjust to the American game, but he's there, right? If you need him, maybe he's number 11. I think that's reasonable. And then you have another talented piece for development, like we just talked about. Like that's 12 bodies with 9 that have actual expectations to play. That's not too many mouths to feed. And it's also not leaving yourself dangerously thin if there's an injury. So I think that's the good middle ground here that I would like to see him get to. Do that, and then let's start the road to Indy, man. That's what I'm looking forward to. So we'll see what happens. But we're finally going to get a little bit more clarity here soon, which is really all I've been looking for the last and how long has it been since Ewan and Pringle committed? I guess over a month now. I don't know. It's crazy. All the days are running together. Whatever. Anyway, we're out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. If you're subscribed, thank you. If you're not, do it. All you gotta do is click a button. It's no big deal. It's not going to cost you anything. We're still free 99 over here, but it helps us. It certainly does. Throw a like in there. We appreciate that. That kind of helps us gain traction and expand our reach to other people. Then the same thing over in podcast format. If you can't watch, but you can listen, hey, the Pod of the Palace, you can find us over on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're there as well. But thank you guys. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be back tomorrow morning. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pod of the Palace. We'll see you later.